Okay, so why do the smartest people suddenly vanish from bad relationships? You have seen this happen. Maybe you did it yourself. No screaming matches. No long text messages at 2 in the morning. No dramatic ultimatums. They just step back. They fade out. They go silent. Most people call this ghosting. They think it is cruel. They think it shows weakness. They assume the person is just afraid of confrontation, but they are completely wrong. While most people waste years trying to fix broken people, you saw through the noise. You walked away quietly. You felt guilty for doing it. You wondered if you were the cold one. You were not. The last reason for this silence changes everything. It reframes your entire past. Most people believe a quiet departure is a sign of emotional cowardice. That is the great myth of modern relationships. We are taught to fight for people. We are told that real love means endless debate. We are conditioned to believe that if you care, you argue until the room burns down. But that belief is a trap. It keeps you locked in dead-end dynamics. It drains your best energy. High intelligence changes how your brain processes conflict. Highly intelligent people do not run away because they are afraid. They leave because they have finished calculating the return on investment. They ran the maths. They realized the argument was a black hole. Look at how this myth plays out every single day. A toxic partner boundary steps. An aggressive friend takes a cheap shot. A manipulative coworker tries to undermine you. The average person reacts instantly. They raise their voice. They write a 5-page message explaining their feelings. They demand an apology. They pull out past receipts. They waste hours replaying the fight in their head. They try to teach the other person how to be a decent human being. But the intelligent person sits back. They observe the exact same disrespect. They do not raise their voice. They do not write the long message. They simply make a mental note. They lower your access to their life. They pull back their real energy. This quiet retreat is not emotional weakness. It is advanced psychological energy management. Daniel Kahneman wrote extensively about cognitive load and decision-making. Every human brain has a limited bank of emotional fuel each day. Fighting with someone who refuses to understand you is an extreme tax on that fuel. It exhausts your prefrontal cortex. It triggers your amygdala for zero reward. Intelligent people realize this early in life. They stop spending high-value mental fuel on low-yield emotional battles. They see that arguing with a bad actor is like paying a tax on someone else's dysfunction. While others burn their lives down to win a point, you choose to keep your energy intact. The first crack in the myth appears when you look at how communication actually works. Most people think communication is about sending information. They believe if they find the perfect words, the other person will finally get it. But Sigmund Freud proved that human behavior is mostly driven by the unconscious mind. Ego defenses exist to protect bad behavior. When you confront a toxic person, you are not talking to their reason. You are attacking their psychological defense mechanisms. Projection, denial, rationalization. Their brain does not process your logic. It processes a threat. They will twist your words to protect their self-image. Intelligent people spot this pattern very fast. They realize that explaining a boundary to a chronic boundary breaker is completely useless. It is like explaining color to a wall. Robert Greene talks about this in his work on power dynamics. Direct confrontation often gives the target bad data. It tells them your strategy. It tells them where your emotional nerves are. When you yell at someone, you hand them a blueprint of your vulnerabilities. They now know exactly which buttons to push next time. Leaving quietly deprives them of that data. It leaves them with zero leverage. It protects your internal architecture from being mapped by someone who wants to break it. The second crack in the myth comes from understanding human personality structure. You cannot convert a destructive personality type through debate. Stoic philosophy taught this thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he would meet selfish, arrogant, and deceitful people. He knew you cannot control their nature. You can only control your response. When an intelligent person encounters a manipulative or deeply narcissistic individual, they do not get angry. Anger implies surprise. Anger means you expected them to be better. Intelligent people do not expect a scorpion not to sting. They simply step out of the strike zone. Think about what happens during a big confrontation with a manipulative person. They lie, they twist the timeline, they bring up things you did 3 years ago, they force you to defend your reality. This is gaslighting in its rawest form. If you engage, you validate their fake reality. You enter their domain, you play by their rules. Carl Jung wrote about the shadow self and self-deception. People who act toxically are usually running away from their own internal shame. They cannot afford to hear your truth. Your truth would destroy their ego structure. Therefore, your facts mean nothing to them. An intelligent person sees this game clearly. They refuse to step onto the board. The third crack in the myth involves the concept of emotional closure. Society tells us that we need a final, big conversation to end things cleanly. We think we need the other person to say, "I am sorry, I was wrong." We crave that validation, but waiting for a toxic person to give you closure is an act of self-sabotage. It gives them total control over your peace of mind. They will withhold that closure forever just to keep you hooked. They will leave questions unanswered. They will keep the door half open to keep you checking the lock. Intelligent people generate their own closure internally. They do not need a sign-off from the person who hurt them. They rely on cold evidence. The bad behavior was the closure. The disrespect was the final statement. The repeated pattern was the answer key. When you accept this reality, the need for a final dramatic showdown evaporates. You do not need to sit across a table and trade insults. You process the grief on your own terms. You make the decision privately. You close the book without needing their permission to turn the last page. While most people stay trapped waiting for an apology that will never come, you free yourself by accepting the truth as it is. Here is the real mechanism at play. It is the core truth about human behavior that changes everything. Intelligent people do not quietly vanish because they care too little. They vanish because they reached absolute emotional zero. It is a calculated, irreversible boundary. In psychology, this is known as the point of total disengagement. It happens when your brain transitions from active frustration to total detachment. Frustration means you still have hope. Frustration means you still believe the relationship can be saved. Anger is actually an expression of investment. It is a plea for change disguised as noise. Silence, however, is the death of investment. When an intelligent person goes quiet, it means they have lost all faith in the dynamic. The mental matrix has completely closed. They watched the pattern play out 10, 20, or 50 times. They did the emotional calculation. They realized that staying costs more than leaving. They saw that their future peace was being traded for someone else's temporary comfort. So their brain switches modes. It flips a master switch from conflict resolution to total containment. They stop arguing. They stop correcting you. They start agreeing with you just to end the conversation faster. They let you think you won the argument. They give you the false victory because they are already planning their exit. This is the ultimate psychological reframe. The silence is not a passive act. It is a massive, deliberate reclamation of personal power. Erich Fromm wrote about how modern humans surrender their freedom out of fear. We stay in broken situations because the chaos feels familiar. Walking away into the quiet unknown takes real internal strength. It requires you to sit with the temporary pain of ending a dynamic. It forces you to accept being misunderstood by people who are not equipped to understand you. When you quietly pull back from the wrong people, those people will almost always misinterpret your departure. They will call you cold. They will tell mutual friends that you changed suddenly. They will claim you never cared about them. They will frame themselves as the victim of your sudden absence. They will construct a story where you are the villain who vanished without a reason. This is the price of high-level emotional intelligence. You must be willing to let bad actors write a bad story about you. You must accept that you cannot edit their narrative. If you defend yourself, you fall right back into their orbit. You start the cycle all over again. You trade your real peace for a fake sense of justice. The most intelligent move you can ever make is to let them hold onto their flawed version of you. Let them believe you were wrong. Let them believe you were weak. Let them win the fake trial in their head while you reclaim your actual life. Friedrich Nietzsche spoke about the concept of self-overcoming. True power is not about controlling others or winning petty disputes. True power is the mastery of your own attention and location. Think about your own life right now. Think about the energy you spent this past year on people who drain you. Think of the long messages you drafted but never sent. Think of the nights you stayed awake trying to figure out why someone treated you poorly. You were trying to apply high-level logic to a low-level problem. You were looking for reason in a place governed purely by ego and defense mechanisms. You were trying to buy emotional real estate in a desert. You do not need to fight every battle you are invited to. Most invitations to conflict are just traps designed to consume your time. When you step back, you are not running away from a person. You are stepping toward your real potential. You are making room for people who match your frequency. You are clearing out the psychological clutter so you can actually breathe. The quiet departure is the ultimate filter. It removes the noise without creating new mess. This is the final reframe. Your silence was never a flaw. It was your survival mechanism working perfectly. It was your self-worth asserting itself without needing a microphone. The next time you feel the urge to explain your value to someone who refuses to see it, stop. Remember the math. Remember the cognitive load. Take a breath. Let the silence take over. Let them keep the last word. You keep your life. You walk away cleanly. You move forward with hope, clarity, and total control over your future.